it's always mold. It always comes back to mold. Unfortunately, it's always mold, and it's mold when it's a new soldier's room. When that is the room they're given, and it's like, here's your room. It's already pre-molded. So you have to worry about growing your own mold.
At this time in 2007, everybody's being blown up, especially truck drivers, anybody in any sort of convoy of any kind, for the most part, but specifically softer targets like tankers. Now you are also an explosive rolling down the road.
The unit we replaced actually they were hit with an RPG when their tankers didn't explode. It was actually just kind of, the rocket went in and just stayed in the tank. And nothing happened. It was a shitty situation at the time, but it was a growing moment for me and worked out for the best.
You ready?
I just started. Yeah, welcome back to the Strong She's Right podcast. I'm Andrew. This is Nona, and today we're joined with Robert Evans. Which one do you prefer?
Rob's fine.
Okay. I forgot to ask you before the show, is anything off limits?
He's not going to answer that now.
Okay. All right.
I guess put me on the spot.
Yeah.
No, I guess nothing's really off limits.
All right. So brought you on because we wanted to talk about, some of the successes and things that you've had with Hots and Cots, and then just saw and you were talking about how you're on paternity leave now because you just had a new baby on Thursday. Was that right?
Yeah.
So
Thursday morning, very early morning.
Congratulations, boy or girl?
Another boy. Thank you.
So you have
boys
two?
now.
Three?
Three boys. 5, 5.5, 3.5, and 0.
Aww.
Oh, wow. You were in the Air Force, right? Or Army?
Army.
I
was 6 years reserves and then 6 years National Guard, and then during that time I was activated several times.
Did you have any of the kids at that point, or are all 4 or all 3 born since you've been out?
Born since I got out. So I got out in 2009, and I had a previous wife that time, and I got introduced to Jody. Wow. So I have so my wife now and I, we've been married. Actually, our anniversary is yesterday. We actually were so sleep deprived. We kind of was halfway through the day. We're like, oh, happy anniversary.
Oh, how many years?
So 12 years.
Congratulations.
Hey, but that's good though. At least it was because of the newborn baby and not for some other reason, work or otherwise.
Yeah.
Something to actually be celebrated.
Yeah. So I think my mother-in-law said I gave her the best anniversary gift of a new baby. So
it's perfect.
Can't top that, I guess.
Yeah. Little just off topic here real quick, and then we'll come back to what we were actually planning on talking about. I'm in a group chat with, I don't know, it's 90 people on X. And one of the guys was talking about how today's his birthday and his 4 other siblings as well. And we're like, so you're quintuplets? And he goes, no, my dad had 3 boys and twin girls with 4 different women. And they all happen to be born on the same day.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, my dad
that's what I was about to say. I was like, that is really wild to all have the same birthday.
Yeah. Born.
That many different women.
Born in 83. So he said his dad was in college and his dad was
clearly a player.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got around.
Yeah, no doubt. So, man.
Sounds like Tyreek Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways. So you're Hots and Cots, right?
Yes, Hots and Cots.
So,
how did that start?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So it started shortly after the government accountability report came out. It's kind of blurs. Last year came out in September, where it was mainly focused on the U.S. Army and the barracks quality of life issues. Talking about the living situation, living conditions, and what soldiers were living with, sharing rooms with multiple different soldiers, no personal space, mold, security issues. There were reported issues of assaults happening because they didn't have proper ways to lock and secure their doors and windows. and it kind of went, if you read it, it even talks about how some soldiers had to clean up, unfortunately, the remains of other service members after they, and sadly, have taken their life.
Wow.
So it was pretty eye-opening situation and when that report came out. But if you've been in the military for any amount of time, living conditions aren't the best. It's usually the ones who've never served that are kind of really surprised by this. And so when that government accountability report came out, I wanted to find a way to give back, kind of get back and make a change in some shape or form.
Well, it's awesome. So, I mean, it feels like it's, blown up. Who, was kind of the first connection? Was it the guys from U.S. Army What the Fuck Nation that kind of helped it kind of spread and go viral, or how did that work?
So two, it was on the Reddit community. So the Reddit community over in Army was one. That community was a great spot to kind of get a grassroots movement going to get the app known and spread out. A lot of the questions, optional questions, and what I wanted to collect in the app was kind of through collaboration through that subreddit was one area. And then the first installation was JBLM that reached out. They actually reached out to me to see how we could work together. I think it was maybe a week out, the app was out, and the garrison commander over there said, hey, he told one of the NCOs, like, hey, I want you to find out who this person is because I want to be able to work together, and any feedback, we can utilize that to improve the quality of life for our service members.
That's awesome, though.
I think, yeah, and it's been a great working relationship with them. So anytime there's an issue, I have a direct contact over there. That NCO has since retired. She left the Army, but she handed it off to additional, actually further up in the chain of command. So now there's a company commander level now who we contacted. I'm actually going to meet with him this week to talk about ways we can utilize Hots and Cots to make improvements.
That's smart, though, on any installation, command group to reach out and get ahead of it, because if you're not, then you have the scenarios where people are reporting, not having food in the kiosks and mold and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And they're finding out, when it hits the news, because people post in the app, it makes it on the Reddit, it makes it on Twitter. Tens of or hundreds of people start tagging people.
It's always better to be proactive than reactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, people reporting stuff on social media on installations isn't anything new. I mean, there's a bunch of meme pages for installations out there, and there's Army WTF moments who've been doing this a lot longer than I have, where these soldiers and service members report issues. But I wanted to create a way to create an environment to show the great things the Army has done, and not just the Army, but any branch, because it's open to all branches, what they're doing well and what needs improvements. It was really kind of wanting the way so junior enlisted know what to expect when they're coming to an installation.
Right.
And ways that the installations can use that data to make improvements with real live feedback.
What's the worst one you found?
It's always mold. It always comes back to mold. Unfortunately, it's always mold. And it's mold when it's a new soldier's room, when that is the room they're given. And it's like, here's your room. It's already pre-molded. You don't have to worry about growing your own mold. Those are probably the worst ones I've seen. And a lot of times, and that was actually one of the first issues that I got resolved with JBLM. A service member came back. I think it might have been from Iraq. He came back and he's like, this was their first room that the barracks manager gave them. And I said, this is unsat. So I sent it to my contact over there. And within 24 hours, he was moved out of that room to a new room, a clean one with no bugs and no mold, which it should be.
Right. Yeah. I've seen so much. It looks like it happens pretty quickly too, which I think was the problem with specifically only posting on social media before. Now having a central reporting app where people can corroborate it too. Like, yeah, I saw the same thing. I haven't used the app. Obviously, I don't have a use case for it. I know I looked at it to get it on Veteran Wiki last year, and I know you roll out features and stuff all the time. So correct me if I'm wrong. Other people. So if somebody reports or somebody posts some sort of rating and review for something, other people can comment on it. Correct?
No, you can't do comments. But if others, I mean, you can't comment. Like I don't have comments where other service members can comment on it, but they can make their own similar reviews for an
Okay.
installation, and then based off those reviews, I will aggregate an average rating for that installation based off of all these reviews. So if you have a lot of 1 stars, you're going to have a lower rating. But if you have a bunch of 5 stars, you're obviously going to have a higher rating of. And then you can kind of determine, okay, what the quality of life is for that for the barracks and dining facilities and such.
Do any barracks have a 5-star rating?
Yes, there are some that have 5 star, but it's only probably because there's only a few reviews.
Gotcha. But still,
So
I mean, at least
Fort
it's not
Liberty,
the terrible.
JBLM, Fort Carson, they have probably the bulk of the reviews that I have. I could pull it up and look and see, tell you what they have.
I'm
Give me a
assuming for
moment, I can
Fort
look on the app.
Liberty, that's Fayetteville, right? I'm assuming it's terrible mold, asbestos, and terrible food.
Yeah, and their food is 3.2 average, and then 1.9 for their barracks over at Fort Liberty.
That's horrendous.
And that's out of 5 or out of 10, to be clear.
That's out of 5.
Okay.
That's out of 5. So something I've actually just released, so not too long ago, probably in the last 2 to 3 weeks, a whole reporting mechanism that leaders can go look at, and they can pull their own. They can basically, it's a reporting mechanism where it's all the data aggregated, and they can see what their top reviews are with the lowest ones. They can see their average rating for Hots and Cots, and then you can also see what it is across other branches. And they can also download that data as well to be able to kind of slice that into how they want.
So I saw something recently. I think it was like rats or something in like the DFAC or so. I don't understand the kiosk concept. And it might not have been specifically from Hots and Cots. It might have been on Reddit, and I think maybe Hots and Cots tagged or something along those lines. But my question with that is, or I guess my statement, and that leads to a question. It looks like the turnaround time on response has improved, if nothing else. Even if maybe the conditions aren't overall being corrected yet, it seems like this is getting in front of leaders' eyes, and they're at least addressing it or giving a statement and saying we're looking into it, where we have a plan to move forward. Does that feel true to you?
Yes, within certain installations. So since I've launched, I've created quite a bit of relationships across several different installations. So Fort Carson, Fort Liberty, JBLM. There's a couple others that I've been able to reach out and kind of make contacts with to escalate issues to and get resolutions. If I don't have a contact, I've been able to work with Army Material Command. I've been able to make a contact over there who's been able to help me get issues resolved, which is great. You can't really go any higher than Army Material Command to get issues looked at, which has been great. But yes, turnaround time is getting better when the issues with kiosks run out, which unfortunately shouldn't happen, but it does. And we've been able to kind of work through those challenges.
Are you allowed to talk about your daytime employer? I'd want to ask before I...
Oh yeah, no, that is the one thing that
Okay.
I guess that's the one thing off limits. Like my daytime. So the Hots and Cots is my side gig, who I kind of do on the side when kids go to bed during the weekends and stuff. I'll take some vacation time here and there to work on stuff. But my daytime employer, they know they work on this, and they're very supportive as long as it doesn't interfere with my work stuff, which it doesn't. But
So my question without saying who they are, since I do know, do you think that having them or working for them has helped people take you seriously as, basically a startup app? Do you think that had anything to do with it?
No, I've kept my full-time, my daytime job, my employer kind of very limited.
Right.
So you're aware of it just through some other conversations, things we've talked about.
But it's not anything you advertise.
Yeah, it's not something I advertise. I don't, just in case, I mean, they're the ones that pay my bills, so I don't, if something bad happens, I don't want to
absolutely.
compromise
It's
that.
very smart.
Yeah.
So, but
Keep your private
they're
life
very
private.
supportive. Yeah. And I've done presentations at work on what I do, and they're very supportive, and my team, which is great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have always kind of wondered, how many other projects like yours have been started at some of these companies, because you hear horror stories, and I guess it's not necessarily a horror story, but in some ways you have to know, if you're using company time or company equipment, now you've given company ownership. So there's always something, but I'm assuming, you probably work from home at least most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I work from home. And the company I work for, it's really great work-life balance. And I don't have anything really negative to say about it, where I work. And they've given me a lot of skills to be able to do what I can do with Hots and Cots.
So what did you do in the Army?
My first MOS was a 42 Alpha personnel administration, and then I was reclassed when I went to the National Guard to a 92 Fox fueler.
Okay. Man, fueler. Wow. I had a buddy of mine that joined shortly before I did. We went to high school together. He didn't really have any opportunities or anything because he just was not the smartest person in the world. And I just remember he failed the ASVAB and got a waiver, and that's the MOS that he took. And I didn't think anything of it, right out of high school. And then when I was in AIT, they're like, at this time in 2007, everybody's being blown up, especially truck drivers, anybody in any sort of convoy of any kind, for the most part, but specifically soft or softer targets like tankers and things like that, where not only can they use an IED, but now you are also an explosive rolling down the road. And they threatened us. And so I was a medic, and that every day, hey, you fail this course or you do this, you get recycled, you're only going to get one chance, and we're going to send you to, you're going to become a truck driver, you're going to be a fuel supply specialist or whatever.
Needs of the Army.
Yeah. So
I couldn't actually. So I made a mistake. I got out in 14 earlier. I said 2009. 2009 is when I deployed. So I was actually forced to reclass to a 92 Fox. And technically, if you look at the requirements for a 92 Fox, you're not supposed to be colorblind. And I'm red-green colorblind. It's 2009 when the surge was happening. And at that point, I guess I got a waiver. I'm not really sure. I didn't really ask questions. And if I did, I was a specialist. They didn't really care. So,
or somebody overlooked that fact.
Or maybe someone overlooked that fact, but they made me become a fueler, which is fine. I mean, it's fine. Whatever. I got to drive. I got to go off the post and drive around a big old explosive tank.
At that point, I'd be like, hey, you guys waived it for truck driver. What about pilot school? Can I go?
Can I go airborne? Because that was one of the things when I first, when I was early in my Army time, I was like, I would like to go airborne or something. And they're like, no, sorry, you're colorblind. And I was like, well, I guess. Okay, fine.
See, for jump school, that doesn't really make any sense to me. For driving a truck, it also really doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, I'm sure there is a reason. I'm sure if you said it or somebody told me, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But the only I can understand it in some positions in the medical field because it's very critical. It's critical to life. I can understand it in aviation. But outside of that, for driving a truck, I mean, this is something that almost everybody does day to day anyways.
Yeah, for fueling, you can't be colorblind because I did, when I got back stateside and I was done, I was actually in an aviation unit, and you have to check the color and the quality of the fuel, which is color related.
Right.
To make sure there's no water and the fuel's good. So the last thing you want to do is put bad fuel into a helo that's about to go up, and then something wrong with the fuel.
So I was just gonna say, I guess, I know, or I understand, farm off-road diesel versus, on-road diesel and stuff like that. But I never really thought about that because, I mean, aviation fuel just seems like aviation fuel, right? To my knowledge, it's actually less explosive. It's more stable than even diesel is.
The JP8 is more stable than MoGas.
Okay.
We had some MoGas when we were over in Iraq, and that was always the one we were always most cautious about because the hotter it is, the more fumes that are giving off, more likelihood of possibly exploding, which would never happen, but you still have to take precautions. But the JP8 was not as blowy uppy, I guess.
Blowy uppy? That's so cute.
Yeah. The unit were replaced. Actually, were hit. They were hit with an RPG in one of their tankers, and it didn't explode.
Wow.
It was actually just kind of the rocket went in and just stayed in the tank, and nothing happened. But still, it's not something you want to get hit with
Yeah.
Right.
when you're driving a big old tank of fuel.
And I've heard stories of people using it for firefighting because it doesn't have the same. You probably know that.
Okay.
Was it like the ignition temperature or something? I don't like basically
Yeah.
overwhelming the fire. They wouldn't just sprinkle it on there, like a high volume.
Oh
of,
yes. Yeah, the ignition temperature is different. I can't remember. It's been a long time, very long time, so I've had to kind of remember that stuff. But I do recall it being different.
I tell people, so to your comment on that, I tell people all the time I forgot more than I've ever learned. And they're like, what do you mean? How is that possible?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the muzzle velocity of a 5.56 from an N16. That's not pertinent to my life.
It's not. I don't. Yeah, I don't. And it's weird because a lot of people always ask me because they knew I'm in the Army. They're like, "Oh, what about the M16? What are your thoughts?" And they want to get in all these specifics. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I was a fueler. Like, I had to carry one, but it's not something I remember day to day.
Right.
Now, where I'm writing code.
Right.
Since I've been out in 2014.
So how did you, actually, I want to just bring up one thing real quick. We went to the drag strip in, what was it?
Rockingham.
Yeah, Rockingham. We got invited by some friends of ours a couple weeks ago, and they have jet cars. I had no idea that they just ran diesel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they just ran, the diesel fuel that you could buy from any gas station, truck stop, or whatever, and they're jet engine powered cars. I really thought that jet fuel was like a really dedicated kind of product, and that I couldn't do that. And they're like, no, they're basically the same thing. I'm like, okay, if you say so.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's like JP8 runs majority of the Army vehicles.
Yeah.
At least when I was in it. I'm sure it's probably the same still. But the MRAPs, the Humvees, the Blackhawks, like it was all JP8. It was different testing qualities, and quality you had to make sure. Like I said before. But other than that, though, most of everything ran on JP8.
Yeah, I know they're trying to do like hybrid stuff, but I feel like that's still so far out. They're talking about trying to.
Yeah.
There's like an M1 Abrams M1 variant that they're going to come out with that's going to be hybrid electric, and I'm like, where are you going to charge it?
Yeah.
And that's a ton of batteries. I mean, there's already like a ton of batteries in EV vehicles. I can only imagine what it's going to take to run. How many batteries it would take to run an Abrams?
Yeah, it's insane. I saw a picture of it. It looks cool. It looks like something straight out of a video game. Like high tech.
Yeah.
And of course, it's just like any other like concept vehicle that you see, a BMW with like fully round wheels or whatever. And you're like, that's
Super
never
cool,
going to.
and they're like, we're never going to make this.
Yeah, it's never going to come to market. It's never going to happen.
We just wanted to see if we could.
Yeah. So leads me into my next question. How did you make the transition from, personnel specialist to fueler to writing code?
Yeah. So when I was in the Army Reserve, I was 42 Alpha, and when I went to Fort Stewart and worked in the G2, I was fortunate enough to get kind of work under my NCOIC at the time, owned a IT business, and he kind of got me into networking, computer administration, some very early stuff, and Windows. It might have been like Windows 98, doing that stuff. Like, yeah, that's how long ago it was. It was right after 9/11 because I enlisted in 2000, finished AIT in 2001 because I was split up, and then I was home maybe like 3 months, and I deployed my reserve unit up to Fort Stewart, and I was working in the G2. And that's where I kind of got my first taste of computers, like in an enterprise type environment, because I did some stuff at home, like playing around, Napster, all that stuff. And I kind of it just kind of clicked, and then I progressed in my career doing that stuff, working in computers, and probably went into software development. It's probably been 5 years now. I made the jump over to software development, writing code, mobile apps. So that's how I kind of progressed. So that's why I was always interesting. When people find out I was a fueler, they're like, why'd you want to be a fueler? Like, I didn't. The Army wanted me to be a fueler.
Yeah. And in the reserves and in the Guard, it's a lot more difficult to get into an MOS that you want, because otherwise you're having to go to a different state, or, your drill reserve or guard station or whatever, it could be hours and hours away. Mine, when I got out, because I did the MSO reduction, so I was going to do 2 years in the reserves to negate my 8 years on IRR. I got my disability during the time, so I ended up didn't have to fulfill that obligation. But my reserve unit was over 4 hours away from where I lived, so I had to make that commute on the weekends or one weekend a month.
It's rough. Yeah, the unit I deployed with was like 4 hours away where I lived. So I went from making like a 45-hour drive to my National Guard unit, and then when they reclassed me, it also put me in a new unit, and that was like 4 hours away. So yeah, you don't really. It's rough. So based on your MOS, can determine what type of unit you're going to be in for National Guard and reserves.
And this is when you were going through a Jody situation, also.
The Jody situation happened when I was in Iraq.
Gotcha. Okay. So I was just wondering if that was happening on the weekends that you were 4 hours away.
No, it was only it was when I was like many hours away in Iraq is when I found out about the Jody situation.
See,
I'm sorry.
I think that's even worse than being on active duty and it happening, because when you're on active duty, at least it's not people that you potentially know. But when it's in your hometown, it's somebody that you could potentially run into. You can't get away from that person.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's fine. It worked out for the best. Like, I have a great wife. I have a great wife. I have 3 great kids. So it was for the best. It was. Can I cuss on here? I don't know.
Yeah,
you can.
Okay, it was a shitty situation at the time, but it was a growing moment for me, and it worked out for the best.
Obviously, she wasn't the one.
No, exactly. She wasn't the one.
So, do you have any other projects other than Hots and Cots, or is that really your biggest side project?
Hots and Cots right now is my biggest one. Doing the mobile app development, and then
trolling people on Twitter.
Trolling people. No, it's and then AUSA, they announced the Blue Book, which AUSA last year was supposed to be an app. So I've been kicking around the idea of creating an unofficial Blue Book app. So you don't have to have the book. You probably still have to have the book.
I've seen the memes, and I asked what's his name, Andy. MedPros. I can't think of. I don't know his last name. Because he's he's Sergeant Major, and I'm like, everybody's posting it. They're posting memes. People are like, why do I need this book? I have a cell phone. I'm like, what is this book? What is going on? He's like, I don't even know.
It was supposed to be an app. When Sergeant Major announced it in 23 AUSA, it was going to be an app.
But what is it supposed to? I don't even understand like what it is.
I haven't seen it per se. Like, I've seen sections, but parts of it. But it's basically just regulations that are posted into what is now a book. It has some war history, standards and discipline. It's pretty generic, what you would expect from.
So it's snippets from the FMs and TMs and soldiering.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like 23 pages.
That's it.
And I don't know. It's only 23 pages. And as of like a couple days ago, the online version is not even online anymore. It may be back, but it's not even online.
Sounds like now. Typical government bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. The Blue Book, why they didn't do the app.
Yeah,
I have my theories, but I don't know.
Well, it's probably the bidding on the project. You could probably do it right now and pump it out, the next couple of weeks or whatever. But how much are you going to get paid versus these contractors that put in bids for probably multi-million dollars?
Did you bid for it?
I've looked into bidding, and it's very complicated. So there's on bidding any sort of stuff for software development. To be honest, I don't quite understand all of it because there are some companies who probably have people dedicated to that stuff on bidding projects and being able to do government work. And
dude, sam.gov sucks.
What's that?
Sam.gov sucks. It's like, it is so convoluted and complicated.
Yeah. It was like 8 steps, and like the first step I got lost. It's like, okay, first you have to look up what your product is related to, and then what you're going to be bidding for. I'm like, okay, mobile app software development. But then there isn't that. And there's like a bunch of other options. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I like writing code. Bidding contracts is not my thing. I always say, like, if I ever get into a bunch of money with Hots and Cots, maybe I'll like find someone who's dedicated and knows how to do that, and I would bid for projects. But I mean, Hots and Cots, I pumped out the first version in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I looked briefly looking at the blue book. It's probably done in 2 weeks as well.
So what is it? We'll come back to the blue book thing. How do you pay and maintain for Hots and Cots? Are you running ads, or is this supported by anybody at this point?
No, by me. No, it's actually so no ads. I'm not really a fan of ads.
Neither am I. I'm a marketer and I hate ads.
I don't like ads. Like I had to go to the store to like pharmacy. I was like trying to find something like Mucinex because I was getting over a cold. And like within like 3 hours, I was getting Mucinex ads in one of my apps. I'm like, this is like ridiculous. So, and I wasn't even looking online. Like it was listening to me. My phone was listening to me. So one of my apps is spying on me. So supporting is all through contributions to the app. So you can contribute X amount of money if you want to. It's not required to use the app. The app is free. There's no ads. But mainly just through the generosity of people that use the app is how the app's supported.
Is there a method for an outsider who wanted to donate, like somebody, a benefactor of some kind?
Yeah. So I started a new site, feed.hotscots.app, where you can view content without the app. And there's an option there to contribute. Up in the upper right-hand corner, it's like support. You can donate from $1 to however much you want to contribute.
Okay. Yeah, I just pulled it up. Oh wow. So that's our food.
It looks like your normal breakfast, Andrew.
No. Like I've seen people, jokingly say, oh, like the quality of food, from the Air Force versus from the Army. And what's his name? EOD Happy Captain posted something.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I love being in the Army and eating Air Force food in the DFAC. And I was like, I love being a veteran and eating at a Waffle House. And my Waffle House meal looked so much better even than what he was getting from the Air Force.
And here's the thing, like even the Air Force, as I've been doing this more, even Air Force have their issues. I just spoke with military.com because there's a Air Force base here in South Carolina that they don't even have dining facilities at all.
Oh, wow.
How do they get around
they've
that?
Been closed. So my understanding, they're giving the airmen an extra, they're increasing their BAH to like, I think it's like $900 a month. But the problem is a lot of these junior airmen may not have kitchenettes. They may not know how to cook. Some of their leaders are telling them to just go eat the bowling alley, which we all know what type of food's at a bowling alley. If you've never been to a bowling alley,
wild.
It's bar food. So it's not really healthy food.
Right.
And this is the thing I was telling military.com is a lot of these folks are the first time being away from home, and they're trying to get away from making those same bad habits they had when they were previously a civilian. And if you don't have access to good food, you may fall back in those bad habits of just going to McDonald's, going to fast food all the time with that money instead of eating healthy, which, I mean, that's hard to do if you don't know how to shop for yourself, if you've never done it before. Especially
when you start looking at prices. When you look and you're like, I can get a bunch of boxed macaroni and put the rest of my money into my charger with my 29% interest rate.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
I'm going to do that.
I wonder how many cars have been bought since the food options have been limited for these guys.
Well, there are predatory banks that will give you a loan just because they know they can force you to set up an allotment. So your money comes out pre-tax to the bank on the loan anyways. But some of these guys don't intend on staying in for the duration of whatever the loan is. So they might be
there's like 10-year car loans.
Yeah, they might be they might be paying some ridiculous rate, and then they get out of the military and now they're trying to go to school or they can't find a job, whatever the case may be, and then their car gets repossessed because they made a bad decision 13, 14, 15 months from getting out of the service.
Yeah. And going back to what you said about EOD Happy Captain, like him being a commander at an Air Force installation, that's the difference of a dining facility where commanders and leaders are eating at versus some dining facilities where the leaders don't eat at. And you're going to have a different experience there. If your leaders aren't in the dining facility, they're not eating there. Some may argue, like, what's the point of serving quality food if there's not going to be any sort of checks and balance?
Yeah. I keep telling all those guys, I'm like, when they talk about, oh, there should be every, first sergeant, sergeant major, every commander, anybody when there's a change of command or change in leadership of any kind, they should have to go and live with the soldiers and do this and that. And I'm like, no, that's more of like the undercover boss kind of thing. What I think needs to happen is you have to make it more of like a secret Santa, right? So you go to a unit that you have no leadership role in, and while you're there, you are stripped of your rank. So it's more like going through a ranger school or something like that. And you live as an E-Fuzzy in the barracks, and you go through the routine of that unit for a period of time, and then you present ways for that command and that leadership to affect change at that unit before you're allowed to take your leadership role elsewhere.
Yeah. Because I can't remember who told me this, but somebody told me this and it's stuck with me since. But it's like the Queen said, everything smells like fresh paint wherever she goes.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is true. Anytime a higher ranking officer, general officer, someone in a higher leadership position wants to tour their barracks, what's the first thing they do? We're going to do
surprise inspection in 2 days, guys.
Yeah. We are cleaning. We're going to paint over the mold. We're not going to clean it. We're just going to paint over it.
Yep.
And we're going to make the rooms and everything look spectacular for them. And then when they leave, it's back to the status quo.
Yep.
I'm hoping with AUSA, they announced that they're going to be filling some of these DPW positions, which I'm hoping we'll see an improvement in some of these barracks and the quality of life there. I'm hoping that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think from what I can see, but of course I'm an outsider, right? So I haven't been I got out in December 2010. So what I see is still, reflective of what I remember. But the difference that I see as an outsider now is that it went from people complaining to people complaining and seemingly getting a response. Like every start of the summer season, right? When people can't get air conditioning and it looks like now rather than I think what the rule was when I was in, it had to be like 10 days of 80 or above or something like that as the high before they would turn it on. So if
is just
if you
ridiculous.
If you go 9 days and then
I'm sure that's contributing to the mold factor because obviously mold is going to grow more prevalently in a warm environment.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just, that kind of whole thing blows my mind is that I spent a lot of the summer months trying to get AC back on, working for service members. And it's not even that the AC's off. It's just maybe broken. So the room, it may be 80 outside, but in the rooms, it's like a 90. It's like high 90s in the rooms. And they're not allowed to have window units. So it's just miserable after being outside in that. And you're going to go back to your room where it's also going to be 90 degrees.
Yep.
Growing mold.
Yep.
Yeah. You're
eating shitty food.
Your moldy room that's hot.
And the worst part is the soldiers are responsible for cleaning and maintaining the barracks. So they're not given the proper tools and supplies and things like that to, go wax the floors, go wipe down the walls or do whatever. But they're not HVAC technicians. I mean, not all of them. Some of them might be, but...
Yeah, some of them are. Some of them were HVAC. They worked in mold. I've talked to a few service members who worked in mold remediation previously before joining the military. But even the information, even what they're being told to do to clean the mold isn't like EPA. They're telling them to use bleach, which EPA.
Oh my God, that's the worst thing to use.
Yeah, you're not supposed to use bleach on mold because it just bleaches it. It doesn't kill the mold spores, especially if it's a porous surface. So it's just gonna come back.
So anyways, besides making babies, what else do you do on your free time?
Between Hots and Cots and kids and work, that's kind of my life. That's pretty much it. I don't have much time for much of anything else lately. But I like being a dad. It's great. I have my oldest now. He's getting into stuff that I like to do. So we're doing more things like being able to build Legos. We'll go outside, go fishing, kind of being outdoors type stuff, which is great.
I see a Yankees hat behind you. Is that home?
Yes. Yes. I grew up in Florida, but all my family, and I was born in New York. and all my family's kind of from New York, so I'm ready for the World Series.
Are you going to push your boys into baseball?
I will let them try. Actually, I just finished up baseball. I was a coach for the first year this with my 3.5-year-old. We did T-ball, and I was the coach for his team. And I asked him, we just had our last game. I said, "Hey, are we gonna do baseball again next year?" He's like, "No, you do soccer."
Oh,
He's like, "Okay, we'll do soccer. We'll give that a shot." My 5-year-old tried baseball. It wasn't really for him. He probably isn't. Sports isn't his thing, which is fine. It doesn't have to be for everyone. I think he might try to do some music or do some sort of like STEM type thing.
Nice. Is it as competitive down there as it is here in North Carolina? Like baseball here is 5 nights a week. You're coming home at like 9, 10 o'clock at night. That's why I never put my kids in it. My kids, when they were younger, like your boys' age, 7 p.m. bedtime. So no, that's an absolute no for me.
Yeah, that's what we shoot for, is 7 for bedtime. And when my 5-year-old did baseball, we would get home like till 8, and my wife and I talked about like, why are we having games so late for these kids? Like,
yeah, and then they're tired all the next day at school. It's not a good cycle.
Oh yeah, it's not. So, it's not the T-ball league we did wasn't as competitive. It wasn't super competitive. The league that my 5-year-old did, the coach was very competitive, and I'd be like, dude, they're 5. Like, you need to take it down a couple notches. Like, this is not serious.
We had the youngest played in a tackle football league in our old house last year and just hated it. He didn't really get any playing time. He was one of the younger kids on the team. So they had what they called fifth quarter. So you'd have the regular game, then you'd have like the players that didn't get to play because they wanted to win, right? But you also wanted to get everybody experience. So he didn't get to play much, and he didn't like it. It wasn't for him. And this year he's in flag football rather than tackle football, and he's one of the bigger kids, and they're undefeated. So his entire perspective of football as a whole, like he wasn't interested in watching football, playing football, anything. Now he wants to go to a game. He's so jealous
that I bought him Michigan tickets and that he's not getting to go.
When you see, in any, or I guess up until about college and the NFL, but most leagues, you see the players that are on the sidelines follow the play. Like as the play progresses, they'll run down the field, following and watching and cheering on the guys that are on the field and stuff, that he's out there doing it. And it's not something that the coaches told him to do. He's just excited. He's paying attention. And this is a kid that probably has ADD, ADHD of some kind.
Don't say that.
And like cannot focus. You can have a conversation with him. He's looking you right in the eyes and he's doesn't know what you said.
Kind of like this morning. Yeah. Hey, Cash, when you finish your bowl of cereal, make sure to start the dishwasher because he was the last one.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. And then just walked away.
My 5-year-old does that. So, hey, can you go do X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you want me to do? I don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't. I think that's what turned my 5-year-old off from baseball, is that the coach was really serious and he didn't get a bunch of playing time. He didn't quite understand. It was like his first year doing pitch baseball. And it just kind of turned him off.
Yeah.
And I wish my wife and I talked about it. We wish there would have been an option for him to do T-ball, and get the basics, the fundamentals. And I think maybe it would have been different.
I think both experiences matter though, because the same thing happened to me when I was in the Army. My first unit, I was a medic attached to an MP's, worst place I could ever be. Made me hate everything about the Army. Then I went to RTB and worked as medical cadre, first phase of Ranger School, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. But I'm getting out because there's a potential that I'm going to go back to another unit like the first unit I was in. But in sports, you have to learn how to lose, and you have to have the right coaches and people to be able to get you through that. But winning matters, and that makes it fun.
Yeah, it does. It gives a challenge. But I think if you don't have the basics, the fundamentals, the foundation, I think you need to start off with like kind of, I would say, easy tasks to build up that confidence. If you don't have the confidence, you're not going to have a good time.
Right.
You're not going to
Absolutely.
enjoy it. And I see that in my day-to-day when I was coding, like not seeing the fruits of my labor is a little defeating at times. And it's like, is it worth to keep doing this? And then I see something happen, like maybe a leader will reach out, or somebody will like send me a message like, "Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing," and it kind of relights that fire and be like, "Okay, this is making a difference."
Yeah.
I think that stuff matters.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, to me as an outsider, and obviously, you know, not being a service member, I don't know to say that it's true. And I mean, it's hard for you to say either because we all know how leaders are. You know, they're going to tell you, yeah, we're working on it. But until you get more reports back from those same service members that say, hey, it has been fixed, or no, I'm still waiting on it, it's kind of hard to know.
Yeah. There are some things in the military that haven't changed. Like, and you probably can relate to this. Is like there was an issue at Fort Cavazos where a service member they were moved out of their room because of the situation, because the room was bad, and then they put them in a room that was equally as garbage. And they were like, I don't want to disclose my building number because I don't want my leaders to find out about this because I'm going to get in trouble. And there's that stigma still of speaking out and kind of advocating for yourself that junior enlisted are still afraid they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that you're making an improvement, be it slowly or not. I think, you know, this is going to be a huge thing. I keep thinking I'm waiting for the day when you make an announcement that, you know, DOD is like, hey, we're going to acquire this or something, or we're going to bring them on. So
I would love to. I've reached out to, I've sent the DOD emails. I have contacted Army Software Factory to see how we can work together. Because my whole thing has always been I want to work together because the Army's done a lot for me. It changed the trajectory of my life. It's given me a lot of different options. It's like I said, it changed the trajectory of my life in a place I didn't think I would be. And I want to make it better for those service members. And if that means working alongside the military, the Army, the DOD, Air Force, then I'm all for it.
It's crazy how many people, after they get out, are like, man, I really want to make it better for the guys that are in there. And we all had like the same terrible experience, and everybody's like, I want to fix it. We're going to do it from the outside. And they never want to listen to anybody.
No, I mean, I know Hots and Cots is known within the Pentagon. I've been told that Hots and Cots is quite a following. But I also know because I understand there's some barriers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know who I am. I'm not a government contractor, so I think they're hesitant, or maybe they just think they have the answers. I don't know. But as I said, that's why I created the reporting mechanism. They can see the data themselves. I mean, it's stripped of any. It's all anonymized data, so they can see the reviews. They can see the challenges that are faced across different installations.
That's awesome.
And what's working, because there are a lot of great installations out there that should be recognized as well.
Yeah.
Well, I commend you for making change. That's always the first step.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get this wrapped up here with you and everything. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Other than visiting the website and scrolling through here in the feed and making contributions, is there any way anybody else can help you out? Or
you know, if you're a leader and you want to chat and how Hots and Cots can make things better, I mean, you email me, spread the app, share the news of Hots and Cots. But also, I just want to say, I'm not meant to circumvent any sort of processes in place. Like, still follow your work orders. Please follow your work orders. File ICE complaints. But also leave reviews, because if you're a new service member coming in the military, you're not going to know what your barracks are like. You're not going to know what the dining facilities are like. And Hots and Cots can do that for you.
Okay. Well, is there anywhere anybody can find you, or where do you want them to find you?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I should have plugged that. You can get it on iOS App Store, Android App Store. You can also go to Hots, HOTS, COTS, hotscots.app for the website as well.
Cool. Well, man, it's been awesome having you on. I'm sorry that this took so long. I know when I went back and looked at the conversation, I was like, I had reached out and didn't follow up. Fucking idiot.
That's on par for Andrew, though. His lack of follow through.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I think you have 4 kids. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, life gets crazy. So no, I just appreciate you having me on. This is great.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to get you back on in the future as well. Talk about some successes and things. And
yeah.
Yeah. So, man, Robert, thanks for coming on. We definitely appreciate your time. For everybody out there watching, go check out Hots and Cots. Go check out the app. If you are currently serving, reserve, guard, whatever, get your installation, your unit, your barracks, whatever building. I think you were talking about doing just government buildings in general or something as well, right?
Yeah, I've kind of been playing around trying to, there's been a lot of different asks of doing different things. So I'm trying to prioritize which ones I want to kind of where I want to tackle next. But right now, the last thing I implemented was Army Reserve, not Army Reserve, sorry, our reserves and National Guard armories you can review. That was
Nice.
kind of the last big feature I released.
Hell yeah. Well, man, thanks for coming on, and look forward to seeing that future success. Hopefully that'll come soon.
And I hope both you and your wife get some sleep tonight. I'm sure you're both exhausted.
We got a stretch of 6 hours last night, so I'll take it.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
It's awesome.
It was amazing. It was great.
All right, man. Well, have a good week, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. You all have a good one.
You too. Bye.